Okay, so for this project, what we're going to do is we're going to work on a multi-page magazine. And that will show you how to create your own presets, how to work with master pages, and then work with the guides and just general management of a multi-page document. So first thing I want you guys to double check is in InDesign, make sure that you're working in inches. In order to check that, if you're on Windows, just go to Edit, Preferences, Units, and Increments. If you're on a Mac, just go to InDesign, Preferences, Units, and Increments. So under ruler units, just make sure that these are set to inches. You shouldn't have to change anything else. Then just hit OK. And first thing we're going to do is we are going to make our newsletter preset. So just go to File, Document Presets. Make sure you're on Document Presets and not Adobe PDF Presets. So Document Presets, Define, and you're going to hit New. And we're going to name this Newsletter. So our intent is for print. We want 8 pages. Make sure you have facing pages checkmarked. Page size is set to letter. Width is 8.5 by 11. We want 3 columns. And we want the gutters to be set at 0.125. And then here in the margins area, what I want you to do is you'll see a little graphic that looks like a chain link. Go ahead and turn that off because for like booklets or newsletters, you're going to have different margins and they're not all going to be uniform because one thing you have to take into account is the binding on it. So like if you look in a book or something like that, you'll see like the page curves inward, and that can take away from some of your usable space. So you don't want to put content that's too close to the curve towards the spine because that can just make it more difficult to read, especially on like thicker publications. So what we're going to do is our top margin is going to be set to 1.3125. Our bottom is going to be 0.375. Inside we can leave at 0.5, and then outside is going to be 0.25. Usually a good rule for figuring out your inside margin if you're going to be doing a bound project. If you double your outside margin, that's usually a pretty good rule of thumb. Next up is we're going to go into bleed and slug. And you can go ahead and leave the chain link on because we want the bleed to be the same size across the board. And we're going to set that to 0.125 inches. And if you click another text box, it'll apply that across the board. Going ahead and leave a slug set at 0. We're not going to be using that today. Slug contains information for the printer, like color codes and things like that, so you don't have to worry about that right now. So make sure that your settings are similar to what mine are. And then hit OK. Then hit OK again. And now if we go to Create New, if we go to the Saved category, we should see our newsletter in there. So just select that, hit Create, and voila, if you open your Pages panel, you can see all of our pages are in there already. Okay, next up what we're going to do is we're going to work on creating some master pages. We're going to end up making 2 for this project. So first up, what we're going to do is double click on where it says A Master. It should bring up the whole spread there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some guides to it. Now the reason you want to add guides to the master rather than the individual pages is if you have assets that are going in the same spot on almost every page, you're going to want to add it to the master. That way you don't have to manually add all these guides to all these different pages. So first up, what we're going to do is we are going to go to Layout, Create Guides, and we want rows to be set to 4. We want the gutter to be set to 0.125. We want columns to be set to 2, and we don't want a gutter on it, so just set that to 0. Make sure under options you have fit guides to page, not margins. There we go. And then once you have these settings, just hit OK, and you'll see it added the guides to our master pages. Next up, I'm going to show you how to manually add a guide. So if you don't need like a whole bunch here like we just did, if you just need 1 or 2, you can manually add them by clicking on the ruler and then dragging out from there. So what we're going to do is, if you're on Mac, you're going to hold Command, and then if you're on Windows, you're going to hold Control. What you're going to do is you're going to click in this horizontal ruler. It's the ruler up top. So click in here, hold either Command or Control, and you're going to drag this down to 0.375. Now it can be a bit tricky to get it just right. If for some reason you miss and you add the guide too far down, you can just go up to your control panel here and just manually type in your coordinates if you want. You just have to make sure the guide is selected. And you know the guide is selected because it'll turn a dark blue rather than that cyan color. And the reason I had you hold down Command and Control is that applies the guide to both pages. You can see if I just click and drag down without holding Command, it only applies that guide to one single page. So next up is we're going to add a second guide. You're going to be going horizontal again, and we want these applied to both pages, so hold either Command or Control. And then just click and go down all the way to 10.75. Okay, next is we want to add some vertical guides in. So what you're going to do is click on this left ruler and then just drag out a guide to 0.5. There you go. And then we're going to add a second guide onto the second page. And this is going to go to 16.5. Okay, so the handy thing with guides is you can manipulate them pretty much like an object. So like if you wanted to apply these to a single page, or if you, so let's say I go down here and I wanted to apply a bunch of guides, I could add them, and then I can actually select them and do a copy command, and I can paste them onto another page. So you can see I can do that. Also, if you wanted to add a guide and then repeat it a bunch of times rather than manually going in and adding them, what you can do is you can just add one, and then you can go up to Edit, Step and Repeat. I'd say I wanted to put in 3 more. I can do that. I can set this to 2.5. And then I've got these guides here. But you don't have to do that right now, so I'm just showing you that operation. That's something you can do if you need to. Next up is we're going to add a text frame to the master page. Alright, so grab your type tool and add it to the top here. Make sure it's in line with this margin here. We'll go ahead and make this more exact here in a minute. So with your cursor inside the text frame, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Type, Insert, Special Character, and then we're going to Markers, Current Page. Alternatively, you can also just right click in here, and the Special Characters option is in here, Markers, Current Page. So right now it says A, but if we were to go to our other pages here, you can see it has the actual page number. So I'm going to go back to my master page, and I want to add a M space. An M space is the width of what your font is set to. So if you want just like a blank space between your page number and like the title of your article, rather than just hitting space, adding an M space makes it a little bit bigger, and it's set to the entire width of a character, because when you just hit space, it's just anticipating that you're going to type a new character, so it doesn't add the full width. So with your cursor in that text frame, just right click, insert white space, and then we're going to go M space, and it's E-M as in mom, not E-N as in night. So E-M space, there you go. So you can see it is way bigger than us just hitting the space bar. Next, after that, what you're going to do is you're just going to type in garden news. And then if you hit the escape key, that brings you out of the text frame. That's just something handy to keep in mind, because when you're switching between tools all the time, it can be annoying to click in here and then not being able to use a shortcut, so you have to go over here and click the tool. It's just easier to hit the escape key and you're out of the text frame. Next, what we're going to do is make sure that you have this text frame selected. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Type, Change Case, and we want this set to uppercase. And you can see it changes it all to uppercase. The reason you might want to do this rather than just type it uppercase to begin with is if you change your mind later and you want it to be normal case, we can just go to Type, Change Case, Title Case, and it sets it. It's basically just about ease of control, rather than just manually going in and setting this stuff. We can just hit a preset. Okay, next up, we're going to mess with some of the settings in the text frame. So go to Object and Text Frame Options. So first up, what we want to do is under Inset Spacing, make sure that the chain link is turned off. And what we're going to do is we're going to set left and right to 0.125. 0.125. And under vertical justification, go to the drop down and select center. And then once you have these settings, you can just hit OK. And there we go. Next up, we want to clean this text frame up a bit, and we're going to do precise positioning. So first up is go to your little reference point chart up here and make sure it's set to the left middle. So you can see that highlighted point there. Just click on it. Make sure it's set there. And then for X, we're going to do 0.25. Y is going to be 0.5. And then your width is going to be 7.75. And then height is going to be make sure you have this chain link turned off. And then 0.3125. So if you have the issue where if you change this setting, it changes this setting, just make sure the chain link is turned off. And it should size it the way we want it sized and positioned. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this onto the right page. So I'm going to close this panel, and if you're on Mac, you'll hold Option. If you're on Windows, you'll hold Alt. And with your black arrow, we're just going to duplicate this over. So you hold either Alt or Option, and if you hold Shift as well, it keeps it in line with where it was. So drag this over until that right edge is lined up with the margin. I think I'm a little off, so I'm just gonna, there we go. Okay, so we don't want garden news to be on the side, we want it to be close to the page edge. So what you're gonna do is with your type tool, click inside here again. So you can see it'll be up in the left hand under paragraph formatting. Just hit align right, and it should move everything over to the right side. But we want to also make sure that our page number is on that outside edge as well. So we want garden news to be on the inside. So go ahead and delete the M space and delete your page number. And we're going to go to the end, right click, insert white space, insert M space. And we won't see anything right now, but if we right click again, insert special character, markers, current page number, you'll see that it added the M space. It's just since it didn't have anything else after the M space, it didn't show it to you. Okay, next up is we're going to add some footers. So grab your black arrow tool, select both of these text frames, and hold either Alt or Option, and we're just going to drag downward. If you hold Shift, it'll keep everything aligned there. There we go. And just make sure the text frame is up against that bottom margin, and the guide we made earlier should be going across the top of our lettering there. Okay, so next up, what we want to do is with our type tool is we want to select everything, go up and click on that A and change it from regular to bold, and we're going to change the size to 10 point. And then we're going to go back up to type, change case, and we want it set to title case. And then make sure you do that to both sides here. And then on both sides, we want to type in urban garden oasis. And then just deselect everything. Okay, next up is we're going to rename our master page. So go back to your pages panel. If you right click on a master, go to master options for a master, and it should bring this up. Go ahead and leave the prefix at A, but we're going to rename it 3:1 column layout. Should be able to leave everything as is. And then just hit OK. Next up is we're going to add a couple places for placeholder text and placeholder graphics. That's basically just a way to add a text frame or add a graphic frame. We can leave it empty, and then when we go to add in our content, the layouts or the spaces will already be allotted for them, and we can just basically go to File, Place, and throw them in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click on the left page for our 3-column layout, and we're going to add a placeholder text frame. So grab your type tool, and we want to add a text frame on this leftmost guide where it intersects with the margin, and we're going to go down to the other guide, and we're going to make a text frame right there. So your text frame should be going from the left guide to this margin on the second column, and then from the top it should be the margin up here to this guide. And then we're going to go to the right page, and we're going to add another placeholder text frame. We're going to add it on the opposite side. So we're going to go up here, add it in a similar position, just on the opposite side. There you go. They might be a little difficult to see when they're not selected, but you can easily hover over them and find them again. Okay, next we're going to add a placeholder for where we'll add graphics later on. So go to your rectangular frame tool. Make sure you have the frame tool. That's going to be the rectangle with the X in it. Make sure that you're not selecting the tool underneath it, which is just your normal rectangle tool. So make sure you have the frame tool. And we're going to add a frame into this column here on both sides. So since we have the right page selected, we'll go ahead and add a frame on this side first. So you can see the frame's added there. It has an X through it. Then we'll double click on the left page and add one on the opposite side as well. Okay, next up is we're going to add a second master page. So if you go to the top here, make sure you're not clicking in with your pages here. It's in the top part with your other master page. So just right click in the blank area and hit New Master. You can leave the prefix, but we're going to go ahead and name this 2-column layout. And we want to base this on our previous column layout. It's just going to take out a lot of the grunt work that we've already done once before, because we're going to want some of those guides and some of those placeholders. So in the based on, make sure that's set to our 3-column layout. We want 2 pages. And then just hit OK. So you'll see it added in our page numbers, and it also added in those footers we added. Next up is we're going to go to Layout, Margins and Columns, and we're going to bring this down to 2. You shouldn't have to change anything else, and then just hit OK. Okay, so you'll notice, let's say if I go to this page here, if I grab my selection tool, I can't select any of the objects that are related to our master page, not even the guides. So we're going to have that similar issue on our B master page because it's referencing our 3-column layout. But there is an easy way to override it and still keep them linked. because what you can do is you can right click and there is an option to override all master page items. What that does though is it completely cuts the tie between these two. So if we update the 3 column, later on it won't update the 2 column, and we don't want that. We just want to override a couple items temporarily. So what you're going to do is grab your selection tool, so that's the black arrow, and if you're on Windows, you're going to hold Shift Control. If you're on a Mac, you're going to do Shift Command. And if we just click inside of the text or in the graphics frame, you'll see it actually selects it. Whereas if I didn't hold down those 2 keys, I couldn't do that before. So grab that item and we're going to go ahead and delete it. And we're going to do that for the other placeholders we have on this page as well. So you shouldn't have any of the text frames or any of the graphics at this point. Okay, so we've got that done, and we're going to go back to our 3 column layout. And we're going to add a couple of more design elements to it. So if you go to, you should have downloaded a file from Canvas. It should have been a zip file, and it has a bunch of document files that we'll be using for this. So go to File, Place, and then go to that lesson file. It should have document fonts and links. Go ahead and go into links, and we want to select the header snippet. So if you just scroll down, it should be a IDMS file. It should say header snippet. Select that and hit open, and you'll see it loads up our cursor. Go ahead and go to the corner here. So go to the corner where the bleed is. Then if you click, it should add them where they need to go. So if we go to, now that we've added these to our 3 column layout, if we go to our 2 column layout, because they're still linked, it should have added it to there as well, as you can see. So we're going to go back up to the 3 column, and what we're going to do is we're going to select this left rectangle, and we're going to change the color on it. So we've already got a swatch picked out for it, so just go up here, or you can go to your swatches and change that to green brightest. There you go. And then if we go to our other master, you'll see again it's changed it as well. Okay, next is we're going to apply our B master page to some of these pages, because as you can see right now, if you look up in the corners here, they all say A, so that means they're all referencing our 3 column layout. We want a couple of these pages to reference the 2 column layout. So first one that we want to do is page 4. So if you just click and drag on the B master and just pull it down to page 4. There you go. You can see it's applied it. We know it's applied it because even though both these master columns have the same kind of headers and footers, the A master page has those placeholder frames, whereas the B column or the B master doesn't. So if we look at this spread for pages 4 and 5, 4 has the B master page, so it doesn't have those placeholders, whereas on 5 you can see even though we can't see the text frame, we can see the graphics frame on it because it's still referencing the A master page. Okay, next up is we want to apply the master B page to 5 as well, and we're going to apply it to 8. If you can't see all of your pages at once, let's say if you have that, you can just go to the bottom of the panel and drag it downwards so that way you can see all of the pages. Okay, next up is we're going to go up to page 1. Now this is going to be our cover, so for the cover we don't need things like a page number or these header and footer graphics. So we're actually going to want to get rid of those. But we don't have to do the override that we did earlier. We're just going to right click on the page here, apply master to pages, and we're going to go ahead and set this to none, because for a cover you're usually going to have a graphic that you'll make in another program and paste into here. So just hit OK, and it'll get rid of everything. Okay, next up is I'm going to show you how to manipulate some of the pages in here, how to add and delete pages. So what we're going to do is in the pages panel, we're going to insert some pages. So right click in here and hit insert pages, and we're going to insert 6 pages, and then make sure this says after page, and we want to insert our pages after page number 4. Then we want the master set to none, and then if we hit OK, it would have added 6 pages without any of the masters applied to it. Okay, so again, to see all of our pages, I'm just going to drag this panel a little bit taller and go ahead and go to page number 12. You can just select it by double clicking on it. Okay, so right now you can see that it's based on the A master page. So, and we want to say we want to move that up. We just click and drag it onto page 11. You'll see your cursor change a little bit, and it'll have an arrow pointing right. That just means it's going to shift everything to the right. And then let go. And you'll see that now page 12, which was originally based on the A master page, is based on the B master page. And then if you want to delete multiple pages, what you can do is you can just select the ones you want to get rid of by, you can just click on them, or if you want to get rid of multiple pages, just hold shift, and that lets you select multiple pages, and then you can just hit this trash button, and away they go. Okay, so now let's say you want to have some different page sizes. You would do this like if you want to add an insert to your project. Okay, so what you're going to do is first off, we're going to grab our page tool. It has a little arrow on a page. It should be the third tool from the top. And we're going to select 5 through 8. Those are the blank inserts we just added. And then up in the control panel here, what we're going to do is we want to set the width for 7.5 and the height for 10.5. So now if I go to page 4, you can see that page 5 is a little bit smaller now. A tool that may come in handy now and again is the measure tool. So if you don't see it, you might look for the color theme tool or the eyedropper tool. Right click and select measure tool. The shortcut for it on my computer is K. So that's just handy for like if you just need to measure something real quick. You can just click and drag and it should bring up a menu and it'll tell you the width and height of something. So that's just a handy dandy little tool to have, especially handy like if you forget what sizes page are or what sizes elements are. You can just quickly just measure it real quick rather than trying to guesstimate it from this ruler up here. So we're going to go to page 8 and we want to see the whole spread. So I'm on Mac, so I'm going to hit Command Option 0. If you're on Windows, it'll be Control Alt 0. Okay, next is we want to change the page numbers for our inserts, because even though the insert is going to be part of the project, we don't want that counted towards our total page count. So just grab your selection tool, go to page 5. So what you're going to do is, with page 5 selected, is you're going to right click on it and go to numbering and section options. Alright, so make sure that you have start page numbering at 1, and we're going to go and change the style to the little Roman numerals, so little I, little double I. And then if we hit OK, you'll see now in our pages panel, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, I, double I, triple I, so on and so forth. Right now, it doesn't really have an impact on the project aside from our view in the page panel, but if we were to add a page number to our inserts, it would reference that and show it on those pages. So we're going to go to the first real page we have, so it'll be right after our last insert page. It'll be labeled as V right now. We're going to go and right click and change the numbering and section options, so that way these last few pages go back to the numerical numbering on them. So we're going to do start page numbering at, and we're going to set that value to 5 because the last number we had was 4, so we want it to go straight to 5. And then we're going to make sure our style is set to 1, 2, 3, 4. Then if you hit OK, these last few pages should have gone back to normal. Okay, next is we're going to go back up to page 2. Go ahead and fit the spread into the window. Just hit Command Option 0 for Mac. For Windows, it will be Control Alt 0. So that way we can see the whole thing. And we're going to start adding in content. So we're going to go to File, Place, and first thing we're going to add is an article. So you can see it, Article 1. Now what you can do is you can do File, Place, add the item, File, Place, add the item, or we can actually select all of these. So we want Article 1, Article 2, and we want Graphic Honeybee 1. There it is. So Graphic Honeybee 1. And we also want Graphic 2 gardening tools. And if we hit open, it'll load our cursor with those. Okay, so now if I click inside, it will add in that first article. Then we go to the second place. And then for the honeybee, we want that with pollinators and predators. So I'll add it there, and then add soil for the garden there. Okay, so now we're going to add another snippet to fill out this bottom. Make sure you have everything deselected, so just click out in your pasteboard. Make sure nothing's selected, and we're going to go to File, Place again, and we're going to find the snippet 2. Hit open, and again we're going to click up in this corner where the bleed lines are. There you go, and it should add all these different images to the bottom there. Okay, so next up is we don't want our pages to say placeholder on them, so we're going to grab our type tool. If you're on Windows, you'll hold Control Shift. For Mac, we'll hold Command Shift. We'll click in there and override that object, and it should let you click in there. And we're just going to type in bees and bugs. Then we'll hit escape to get out of there, and we'll go ahead and do that for the other side as well. So again, with your type tool, either hit Command Shift or Control Shift. Just make sure that you're selecting that placeholder text. There we go. And then we're going to put gardening tips in here. Then just deselect it. There we go. Okay, so next up is we're going to be dealing with the bleed. So you know how I talked about earlier how if you're working with something that needs to be printed to the very edge, you actually want to extend it outward. So you can see over here, this one is extending past the page, whereas this is just ending right at the page. The problem with this top image is when they go to trim, they're going to have to be very exact so that way you don't get any white gaps between the picture and the edge of the page. Whereas if they go to trim, you'll see that it cuts off the edge of this image, and we won't have to worry about a gap space or a white gap, because on the other side, if there's a little bit of variation, there's just more of the image rather than just white space. So we want to make sure that all of our images are either meeting that guide or extending past it. Just worry about kind of getting it to that bleed line. So just with your selection tool, just select the picture, and we're just going to extend our frame outwards. So that way when they do that trim, they won't have to worry about being exact. So we're just going to check all our other images. It looks like we don't have to worry about any of the other ones there. But if we look up top here, we want this green to go to the edge, but like I said earlier, they're going to have to be exact for this green rectangle, whereas they won't for the blue one. So since this is a master page object, we're going to go up to pages actually. Go to your 3-column layout, and we're just going to change it here. And we're just going to extend that green rectangle up to that bleed line, so that way they don't have to be super exact and we don't have to worry about any white gaps. And if we go back to page 2, you'll see that it was extended on there as well. And it should be extended on every left side page that we have as well. So now that we've kind of got it the way we want, you can see looking at it right now, we've got a lot of extra stuff. Like we've got frames, we've got margins, we've got all these guides. If you want to be able to just see your layout as is, and you don't want to clutter it up with all this stuff, what we can do is you can either hit Shift W, or if you right click on your screen mode down here and go to presentation, it will fill your screen with your project, and it won't have any of the guides or text frames or anything like that. We can just see it as it would be printed. So you can kind of look it over, get a good idea of what it's going to look like. Okay, so to get out of this, you just hit escape, and it'll bring you back to there. Next up is we're going to add a calendar. So we're going to go to pages, and we're going to go ahead and add it to the very last insert page. That would be IV and Roman numerals. And we're going to go to File, Place. And there should be another snippet called calendar.idms. Hit open. We're going to go to the corner of the page. Just place it in there. And we're going to go ahead and go to our align window. So if you don't see it off to your right, you can just go to window and find align in here. It is going to be under objects or object and layout, and just hit align and bring up this panel. And we're going to go to align to page, and you can see that it changes the center a little bit. So this is actually an editable item, but it can kind of be a bit difficult to view something on its side like this. So what you can do is, if you have something that's rotated like this, is you can actually rotate your view. So if you go to view and then rotate spread, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, you can see now it's set up in a way that we can actually kind of read it easier, and we don't have to turn our head to read it. And the nice part about this is, even though it's the way we're seeing it is rotated, it didn't actually rotate the document. So it's the pages are still portrait, and they haven't been changed to landscape. And then if we want to go back to normal, you can either rotate it back the other way or just hit clear rotation, and it puts it way to the default view. So that's something to keep in mind if you're working with something and you need to be able to look at it from a different angle. You can just go up to view and change how you're viewing the document without actually editing the document. Okay, so once we've gone through all that, you are finished. Just go ahead and save it as your last name, Prac 02, and it'll just be an InDesign document. Just hit save and move on to the next part.